My name is Sharon Hirsch, and today is September 8th, 2020. We're actually broadcasting our Tuesdays together time a few days late because on Tuesday we had a snowstorm in Denver and I didn't have electricity for most of the day. And then I got about with food poisoning and was taken out of things for a few days. We are counting down until our next election and wondering together if this can be a season that helps us find one another or continues to tear us apart. Some have asked if you could learn more about my business or my company. I'm simply a licensed professional counselor who has recently written a book entitled Belonging, Finding the Way Back to One Another. And I have a passion on my heart for us to find one another and connect during these confusing, turbulent times. You know, when it snowed in Denver on Tuesday, it dropped almost 40 degrees. It had been 92 degrees the day before. The unexpected crash into winter weather and the illness that I had reminded me of the last storm we had in Denver. On March 19th, the day I was diagnosed with COVID-19. We were just learning about this sneaky virus, and I was shocked to learn I had it. I crashed into a high fever, aches, pains, congestion and bone aching, fatigue. After I recovered a bit from the dramatic impact, I did what we often do when unexplained, uncontrollable pain comes into our stories. I looked for someone to blame. I was mad at the government for not warning us earlier. And I was mad at the client who came into my counseling office sick. He was with his adolescent daughter and more concerned for her well-being than to notice his own illness. And then I ended up in the place most crashes take us. It all gets back to God, doesn't it? What kind of God allows deadly diseases, devastating financial losses, and the distress of uncertainty? All of the crashes in our life eventually take us face to face with God, whether we acknowledge it or not. We often just don't know what to do with this character who is in all our stories. Is he silent? Careless? Unjust? We get worried about the character of God because we don't understand how he can allow a season like the one we are now in. What kind of character allows a child to be hurt, a woman to be abandoned, or a man to utterly fail? These questions about God remind me of a story from a friend of mine. His name is William, and in fact, this week it's his birthday. A few years ago, he started feeling terrible. His chest hurt. He felt sick to his stomach, and he had trouble breathing. Dana took him to the hospital, and that's when his story crashes into confusion. It seemed to him that men and women in the hospital insulted him and told him he was worse off than he thought he was. And then it felt to William like they assaulted him with probes and even knives. They eventually knocked him unconscious and told his wife, Dana, they didn't know if he would make it. I am filled with gratitude as I think about William today. He is a good friend who has not been afraid to question the role of God in his life. But he did make it that day and ended up being grateful for those insulting, assaulting doctors. They performed emergency surgery, drained fluid from his lungs and heart, and opened up clogged vessels that were becoming hard. You see, when we crash into pain-filled circumstances, it makes all the difference in the world. Who is thwarting our plans? Who is cutting into us? And why? Look at your jar of dust and broken pieces, the glass we broke last week, representing in part how the times we live in have broken us. What stories do all this brokenness represent? Who do you blame for the broken pieces? Some have called this season that we are in the time of blame. We blame the president, the opposite political party, and each other. And we blame God. All that blame results in our crashing into one another, cutting each other with the shards of our broken dreams, broken plans, and broken hearts. What if, as Max Lucado writes, God is like a heart surgeon, and he needs to crack open your chest and remove your heart, clogged by resentment, blame, anger, and anxiety. But God doesn't just remove your heart. He replaces it with his own. That would mean God isn't done writing our stories when we crash into pain, confusion, illness, doubt, and fear. He isn't done writing our stories, even if we've acted out of pain toward one another or him, even if we've decided we don't want him to be writing our story. When we crash into danger, disconnection, loneliness, political chaos, financial distress, or even the coronavirus, about God is the most important thing about us. I am asking you today to consider what you believe about God. It's the foundational question for our finding our way back to one another. Imagine inviting God to hold your jar of dust and broken pieces. How would you talk to him about the broken places in your life? What do you feel toward him when you think about all this brokenness? Toward yourself? Who is the most important character in your story? You can answer that question in two ways. The scriptures tell us that the enemy of our life comes only to lie, steal, and destroy. If the main themes of those broken pieces in your story are about being robbed, your hopes and dreams being killed, and any vision of the future being destroyed, then evil, the enemy of love, has a leading role in your story. But if you can imagine entrusting all the places of your life to God completely, you are in the process of being loved. That might seem crazy if you're in the middle of a crash, like I was the last time we had a snowstorm in Denver. After learning I had COVID-19, I was reminded of the life-changing truth that wrecks can actually be a relief. They remind us we can't save ourselves. We need a rescue story. We'll talk about that next Tuesday.